All right. And I think with that, let me go ahead and drop in the agenda. We're really excited to have a special guest with us here today. And I'll say as I'm doing this, I got a new setup here in my office. I've got a standing desk, so I'm learning to figure out where everything goes. But you will see the agenda here in the chat. And it looks like people are popping in there, so that is great. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do some slides here in a minute. But to kick things off, I see a lot of familiar names. I see some new names that I haven't seen before. So just want to stop and say thank you for joining us here on the Wisconsin Healthy School Meals for All call this February. My name is Allison Paff Harris. I am the Farm to School Director here at REAP Food Group, which is a Madison, Wisconsin-based nonprofit. And I have the pleasure of co-leading our state Healthy School Meals for All coalition alongside, and I think I've only seen two of our other 4 members on the call here right now, but alongside Jackie and Matt, Jackie of Feeding Wisconsin and Matt of Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. Jackie, Matt, do you care to say anything?
Just welcome everybody, and especially our guest from New Mexico, Liz. It's an honor to have you here and to hear about the good work that you're happening in New Mexico. So welcome everybody.
Great to see everyone.
And then our other members of the leadership team are Caitlin Harrison and Stacy Nelson. Caitlin being the school nutrition director of Elmbrook Schools, and Stacy being the school nutrition director of Menominee. I know they had some potential conflicts for today, but if they pop on, we'll be sure to have them introduce themselves. We're going to jump around a little bit on the agenda here today because we might have, just kind of skimming the waiting room here. We may have State Representative Francesca Hong jump on to give a legislative update for where things are sitting here in the state, but I don't see her currently in the waiting room, so we're going to skip past that in the agenda. But what I am going to do is share an update from when we all last met. So I'll go ahead and highlight here in the agenda as I'm going along so you can follow along. But back in January, volunteers, Healthy School Meals for All coalition members met up at the Wisconsin State Education Convention down in Milwaukee. I see three of our wonderful volunteers who joined us, Andy, Anita, and Emily. We also had Maureen, who was able to join us, and we tabled at that event. And it was really exciting to be able to chat with different representatives from schools and school districts across the state. Check out, I linked it here. Andy put together an awesome compilation video about the Wisconsin State Education Convention, and that's on Instagram. So please be sure to check that out. One of the most probably exciting things for us was the Eau Claire School District had put forth the following for the Wisconsin Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly to consider at the convention. And I'll go ahead and read it out here and make sure it's highlighted. That the WASB supports state legislation to establish and fund a universal school meal program to cover the cost of all student meals not covered by federal programs. So once again, the Eau Claire School District put this forward for a vote to the House of Delegates, and it was voted in favor, and it passed. What this means is WASB will lobby on behalf of school meals here in the state of Wisconsin, which is really, really exciting. And we're really grateful to the Eau Claire School District for putting forth that resolution for consideration. Now in the agenda, I'm going to scroll us down a little bit because I want to make sure we get to our special guest. So if you get onto the bottom of page 2, we have Liz from New Mexico. And if you've been on these coalition calls before, you know that we try to bring on folks from different states who have passed Healthy School Meals for All or who are working on passing Healthy School Meals for All to get an understanding of what it's looking like in their particular states. I had the opportunity to go to New Mexico in December for the National Farm to School Network Conference and was really impressed to learn about all that New Mexico is doing with local foods, Healthy School Meals for All, and just so many cool things. And I'm going to turn it over to Liz, who can do a much better job of explaining what's going on in the state of New Mexico. So Liz, I'll go ahead and I'll let you take it over.
Thank you so much, Allison, for inviting me today. My mom's side of the family grew up in New Mexico, or excuse me, in Wisconsin, and I spent a summer working on an olden produce farm in Ripon, Wisconsin. So I have a lot of love for the state. Um, but I have the privilege of serving as the Healthy Universal School Meal Program Manager in the state of New Mexico. So I have a few slides just that I've made in talking about this other places to share. Um, so our Health Universals, are the slides showing okay? I've become a Teams girly, so I'm losing my Zoom fluency.
I I think that they are showing, but I think it's in like presenter view, Liz. So I think
Okay.
if you go, yeah, if you go, or it's in the like the editing view, excuse me. So I think if you go to like presenter view.
Okay. Yeah. So our Health Universal School Meal Law passed in 2023. We were the fifth, right in line with New Mexico, or excuse me, with Minnesota. And our law includes meal quality improvements in addition to providing free meals for everyone. And so it passed in 2023, and there was a period of transition for school food authorities. And this is the first year that schools are required to certify that they are compliant with the rule. So if schools demonstrate that they're compliant, they'll continue to receive a full reimbursement. And if they're not compliant with the meal quality improvements, they'll receive a lower reimbursement after this year. So a little bit more of some of the basics. This costs our state $42 million in recurring funding. And that is in our public education budget. And we, as New Mexico, have really maximized the CEP. We have really aggressively certified as many of our school districts as possible. So we have 100% of our school districts that are eligible for CEP are certified when the threshold dropped to 25%. And we're working to recertify everyone this April to the extent possible, so that when the SNAP rates change, if that affects CEP eligibility, we have as long of a runway as possible before that would affect our ability to offer this program financially. When this started, our state also offered $20 million in kitchen and infrastructure improvement grants. And about half of that has been reimbursed for, and we're following up with schools, but lots of exciting kitchen improvement projects going on. Just to give a sense, we are a smaller state population-wise, so we serve 56 million meals about a year on average, and that's about 22 million breakfasts, 34 million lunches. We have around 300,000 students in the state, and our first year in Healthy Universal School Meals, we had an 8% increase in participation. We had such a high percentage of free and reduced students who already had free access to meals, and a lot of districts that were already CEP. So that's lower than some other states, but was still an exciting increase. And we have a guidance document that was put in place after our rule was released, and I'll share that in the chat as soon as I click out of the screen here. So just to talk a little bit about our meal quality improvements that are part of the law. So the law stated that there was going to be a rulemaking process around scratch cooking, local sourcing. So I'm speaking to the outcome of that rulemaking process. But the requirements are that 50% of freshly prepared meals, or 50% of meals are freshly prepared, which is the term we use to talk about scratch cooking. We historically already had a local sourcing program, an incentive program. So if not everyone participates in that, about 80% of students in New Mexico attend a school that participates in that. So if schools participate in that program, they're required to incorporate local produce. Schools are required to demonstrate that they're taking student family voice into account. They're required to put in some food waste reduction elements and ensure that meals are culturally relevant. So just to touch a little bit more on what each of those mean, for our freshly prepared meal requirement, it's 50% of each meal component. So we wanted to make sure it wasn't just like your fruits and veggies are freshly prepared. Maybe just if you have a salad bar, that might balance out having pizza all the time. So it's 50% of each meal component. So 50% of grains, of meat or meat alternates, of fruits, and of vegetables, to really make sure we're getting the center of the plate and affecting like the entree that's presented. And the reason we say freshly prepared is because that can be scratch or speed scratch. So I'll touch on that a little bit in the next slide. And this isn't required, but we are asking schools to label these freshly prepared items on their menu in some way, shape, or form to ensure that families and everyone can look out for the areas where they're putting that extra effort into. So scratch cooking, that one's a little simpler. Scratch cooking is anything that is from whole items that involves mixing and cooking. Our speed scratch is the little bit more complicated definition. So there are some elements in here for convenience, but we want to make sure that schools are at least transforming those into a recipe. So if thinking about like commodities, like some of those foods are still going to come in, but if you're getting a pre-cooked unseasoned chicken item, you at least have to like transform that in some way for it to count as a freshly prepared item. Or if you're opening a can of mixed vegetables or frozen vegetables, you at least need to like incorporate those into like a pot pie or some type of transformation for it to count as scratch cooking. These are some like real nuts and bolts if anyone has questions on of how we allow schools to include sliced bread and tortillas, and also some of the commodity foods that I touched on, just making sure that they're at least somehow transformed in those processes. Our local incentive program is about 10 years old. It's currently funded around $2 million. We're hoping it's supposed to be by statute funded at 10 cents a meal, or 10 cents a lunch served in the previous year. So that would put us around 3.2 million if everyone opted in. So we're hoping this next year to move to that statutory rate. It's currently a little bit lower than that. And we have an interagency task force in New Mexico. So there's one application and one buying program for producers to enter into for early childhood, K-12, and senior centers. And that's called the Approved Supplier Program. So we have a homegrown food safety program. Producers fill out one application and then they can sell to any of those institutions. We have a local food data portal. So we put in every product that is bought by anyone with these funds. So we can track what was bought from who, how locally. We have around 200 producers, and our state's really special. We have these are all producers who are on 0 to 5 acres, really 65% of our growers are really small growers that don't traditionally have access to institutional markets. And we also have a common award system for this process. So schools apply for this once a year to be a buyer. Producers apply once a year to sell into this market. And then we have an award process for early childhood, K-12. All of us come together to celebrate the progress in local food. In food waste, the requirements in this law are that students in K-5 have to have 20 minutes of seat time. So this is after they've left the line, they need to have 20 minutes. This is counted from the time the last student leaves the line. They have to have share tables. So at a minimum, type 1 share table, meaning it accepts non-perishable food. If they're able to have some type of ice or refrigeration, they can accept perishable foods. And any food that is not eaten from that share table should be donated to an after-school club, senior center, something like that. We also recommend recess before lunch. There's some exciting composting that's happening in schools to divert food waste and food waste audits. These are some examples of some share tables in New Mexico, from the most basic to the fanciest. And cultural relevance is an important piece of our law. It's something we're still figuring out how to define for schools, but we want to keep it as part of the conversation. We know that the history of food, especially in places like New Mexico, has been used to cause harm and destroy food systems and ways of life. And so wanting to make sure that as part of this law, students are receiving food that reaffirms their cultural identity, and that whatever, all of the funding and energy that we're putting into this is creating a more healing approach to food in our state. We are working with some tribes who have not historically had access to our local food incentive program due to administrative budget things and the way that money move in the state. So we're doing a special pilot to have 100% tribally produced foods going to tribally produced schools. So we're excited about that, and to ensure that all different parts of our state have access to that incentive funding. And lastly, student and family voice. schools have to demonstrate that they are somehow taking student family feedback into shaping their menus. So we're leaving this one really open for schools this year to see what they come up with. We don't want to like limit what counts because we imagine that people are more creative than we are. But so we are excited to see what people around the state are doing. But we are going to be requiring documentation of meetings, of taste tests, of some form of taking that input and incorporating it. We had a chef symposium this fall to work on scratch cooking, and it was really lovely to bring together chefs and all of our frontline cafeteria staff. We're also doing a 2-year partnership with Brigade to support us with more scratch cooking training. They've done an assessment and are really pleased with like the shape that our cafeteria is in, the number of labor hours and things that we have, and are really just trying to help us do some training on like how to reshape those operations slightly to make use of our resources. But we've been really excited to get the feedback we have so far on our readiness to be doing scratch cooking. And this is my info. Happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability, or follow up with more info if there's anything I can't answer today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. I want to take a moment to open it up to the group. Any questions for Liz? Just seeing in the comment, Liz, amazing work. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's just, it's inspiring to see all that New Mexico is doing. And I also love the connection to Wisconsin as well from you. That is great.
A question for you,
Yeah.
Liz. How did your school food service directors respond to the scratch? I feel like it's maybe it was a little scary for them. I guess I just am wondering how they responded.
It's definitely been a process. I know that there was a lot of pushback when the first rule was released. There was like requirements on nutrition education and all of these pieces that I was not with the state at that time, and I thought they were a dream as like a nonprofit partner, but would have been really hard for schools, like the school food entity, to implement themselves. There definitely has been resistance to the scratch cooking component, and there was a lot of like nuance put in that guidance document of exactly what does and doesn't count. But like some of our biggest adversaries, I don't know if that's even the right word to use, like some of the folks who were really hesitant about it in the beginning are like taking a lot of pride in it and doing a really great job at it. So it was definitely like a process over many years for them to get used to the idea and figure out what it looks like and that it wasn't so scary. But I got to come in once a lot of that had been moved through already, and work on more of the fun training part. So grateful to my colleagues that were more in that introductory period.
Thanks, Caitlin, for the question. Anita, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, that's my name. Hi, this is Anita. I had a lot of questions. I was just amazed about her presentation. It was amazing. But I wanted to know more about the waste. I heard her say something about that they're donating to after school programs and also to senior citizen programs. When I brought this up to NPS here in Milwaukee, they shut that down for me. They said there was a lot of barriers or something with contaminating the food from one facility to another one. So I wanted to know, how did she get that done to give that to senior citizen buildings?
So there's the Good Samaritan Act, which says that if you are donating food in good faith, that you can't be held liable. Obviously, even with that in place, we encourage schools to be following food safety guidelines. So we have some SOPs in the state of New Mexico that I can pull up and put in the chat. And so the easiest way is if it's all the non-perishable foods or fruit with non-edible skin. All of that is relatively easy to be donated. A lot of what gets donated to the senior centers is a lot of like the milk that gets left over. That does require having some type of ice on a share table. But as long as folks are logging that those have been held at temperature, they can then be donated under that Good Samaritan law.
Thank you. The other question I had also too, you mentioned about parent involvement. I liked that piece about how did you get that together with the parent and the children and the school board coming together to discuss about the breakfast and the lunch program.
So different districts are doing that in different ways, and I want to acknowledge that like the school nutrition programs, there's a pretty big divide from the rest of the school sometimes, and so this is an area that schools are struggling because like they send out invites and they just don't have the communication channels that like the rest of the schools does sometimes. So we really need to kind of bridge that divide for that piece. For example, Albuquerque Public Schools set up like 4 community meetings earlier this year. They brought out some of the new menu items. They shared the new menu. They had us talk about what the rules were and let people sample those. So it looks, and like these meetings are contentious, you know, people really care about food. And so it's exciting to have that energy and have honest conversations about what this law does and doesn't mean. But so the picture on that slide I shared was from a charter school in southern New Mexico. They worked with a food service management company and the students were very unhappy. The school supported the students in setting a field trip up to visit the place where their food was cooked and to voice what they wanted to see improved. Ultimately, those improvements were not made and they switched food service companies. So that's like the highest level of student agency in this. There's also encouraging schools to do like taste tests of new freshly prepared products. We have a program called Nuevo Thursdays, which is an education program it was initially introduced with the local incentive, locally produced foods. But we've kind of expanded it now to include like all the new freshly prepared items and the full implementation of healthy universal school meals. So that's an educational component where cafeterias can do a really simple taste test. Here's a new item. Did you like it or not? So like I said, we're really excited to see how schools are implementing this because we know that they're probably going to be more creative than if we laid out exactly what they had to do. But they do have to submit evidence that they held some type of event and that they actually use that input to inform menu changes.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Thank you, Anita, for the questions. And Liz, I know you need to hop off here, so I want to be conscious of your time. I'll say if anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition, and we'll get in touch with Liz. But Liz, again, thank you for hopping on and sharing all about the work in New Mexico. Really exciting to hear all that's happening. And then I did take, just for folks to know, Liz dropped in the chat a link, and I put that in the notes, and then we'll make sure that gets out to the entire listserv as well. So thank you, Liz.
Thank you all so much. Great work. And I hope to see you on the list of schools that have passed this legislation soon. So
thank you. Thank you. Enjoy your day. And I will just add to some context, Anita, to your question here in Wisconsin, thinking about, share tables and food waste. We're kind of, we want where the current conversation is working in partnership with state agency, which would be Department of Public Instruction, as well as your health inspector and your school nutrition program to see what may be possible. So it's bringing together those three different groups to see if there's, what could be possible in Milwaukee or in other schools. So I'll leave it at that for now. I did see, and now I'm thinking, let me just double check if they are still on. Fran Hong, oh yeah, Fran's still on. Well, want to transition because we have State Representative Francesca Hong on the call here today. Fran, thank you so much for hopping on. And just wanted to pause and give you space to share a little bit about what's been going on in the Capitol.
Thank you so much, Allison. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be back on this call. Sitting here very green with envy right now after that presentation. But it is good to know what is possible and what we can be working towards to make even better here in Wisconsin. Unfortunately, I don't have a great update on what's been going on here in the legislature. The Healthy School Meals for All legislation that we introduced is still sitting in the Committee on Education. We don't anticipate it getting a public hearing. Unfortunately, next week, Thursday, is the only scheduled session day that we or will be our last scheduled session day, pending any special sessions or if the Senate comes back in March. This is pretty typical of an even number year for us to be gavelled out pretty early into the session, into the year, for folks to be doing other things for the rest of the year. I will say we had a pretty big win yesterday, though. There was the Tuesday, Nicole Boyd gave the State of the Tribes address, and she did shout out the Healthy School Meals for All legislation and that we should be feeding all kids, which was fantastic. The entire legislature was there. Governor Evers and Kathy, Josh Call, the Treasurer, Secretary of State. So it was great that a large audience and so many members from our tribal communities came out to hear her wonderful State of the Tribes address and hear about healthy school meals for a moment. I'm not sure, Allison, if you gave the WASB update, but we were very encouraged to see that the Wisconsin Association of School Boards passed a resolution almost unanimously, I believe, with majority support for the Healthy School Meals for All resolution for the school boards. This is a pretty significant win for us. The fact that we are building on our coalition, not just for our coalition here, but for public school stakeholders like WASB to be signing on and uplifting this legislation it's significant. And I think we're going to continue to see our coalition grow. Just because the legislature is not in session does not mean that we stop organizing around healthy school meals for all. And, just like we've done for budgets and our we have to continue to organize. We have to be radically welcoming of folks who want to be organizing with us to advance this bill. And I know with the Democratic trifecta, since we had full Democratic buy-in this past session for this legislation, every Democrat in the Senate and the Assembly signed on to this bill, which means when we have the trifecta and we're making decisions on which bills get into the public hearings, you can expect Healthy School Meals for All to be on the top of that list to either go through potentially an executive budget or through the legislative process. I can't thank you all enough for staying persistent, for staying strong. These are some incredibly heavy times. I know that I'm struggling to just kind of exist as a human sometimes these days, but to have this coalition, knowing that you all are doing the work, that you're showing up for our students right now, that you continue to know that this is something that we can make possible is incredibly encouraging. And I know my colleagues here in the Democratic caucus, we try to bring this bill up for almost as an amendment to a lot of the bullshit that gets thrown to us on the floor. So we're still talking about healthy school meals for all here in the legislature, and we're looking forward to continuing the work with you all as well. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Representative Hong. I want to open it up while you're still on the line. Any questions from anyone who's on the call right now? No, seeing a lot of hearts and clapping hands. So thank you so much, Rep Hong, for hopping on. We really appreciate it and for all your work.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to our office as well. We're on the listserv with you all, but it's rephong@legis.wisconsin.gov.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll be sure to put that in the notes.
So great to see you all. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So what we will go ahead and do is we are going to pivot to a slideshow presentation, and mentioned in the announcement email that went out about this call is we are going to be doing kind of question and answer style format. Being at the Wisconsin State Education Convention this past January, we realized we had a lot of folks coming up and showing support for the movement, but also had a lot of questions of how things all work. And so that prompted this style of presentation for today. If you've been with us for a while, some of these questions and answers at the beginning might sound like you've heard them before, but we hope that it'll help for those who are new or whether you're returning, just to know what's going on and how to explain things to folks who may not know about the movement. So I'm going to go ahead and pivot here and pull up the slideshow presentation. I'm also going to say, because I see a number of names on here who work in school nutrition, you are very much welcome to interrupt me at any time to share your stories or perspective, or anybody here on this call. Please stop me if you do have any questions. Let me go ahead and share this real quick. I love my current understanding. All right, I think everyone can see that right now. Is that correct? See the presentation here? This moves over here. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll get started here. So, top questions about the Healthy School Meals for All movement. Number one, I feel like if anyone ever watched David Letterman back a number of years ago, I feel like I'm on like the top 10 list, but question leading it off, what is the Healthy School Meals for All Wisconsin movement? Healthy School Meals for All is the movement to make school breakfast and lunch available to all Wisconsin students K through 12 at no cost. School meals would be treated the same as textbooks, gym equipment, library books, an important resource to support learning and development. Probably have heard this one before too if you've been on our calls. Why do school meals matter? When students have access to school meals, they receive the nutrition they need to succeed academically, they engage more in the class, they perform better on tests, and have fewer behavioral issues. Community investment in school meal programs improves children's health and educational outcomes, reduces stigma, puts all kids on an equal playing field, saves families time, money, and supports Wisconsin's workforce, farmers, and local economies. And our next questions are all going to dive a little bit more into each of these. So you hear us talk a lot about the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition. Who is the coalition? The coalition is made up of individuals, organizations, community groups, schools, school districts, and others committed to making this a reality in Wisconsin. We say that all are welcome to join the Healthy School Meals for All listserv, attend coalition meetings, and advocate for students in school nutrition programs. So what you mean is you don't have to be a coalition member. Anyone is welcome to attend these meetings, be on our listserv. But when you officially join the coalition, you're being counted in helping to grow our network of stakeholders supporting this movement. You, your organization, your community group, and your school district can choose to join publicly or privately, but what matters is that you're signing up to be counted. Because then when, say, we're out doing an interview or we're talking with folks, we can say, oh, hey, 300 people are in support of this, or 500 people are in support of this. It's helping to just show that momentum here in the state of Wisconsin. The presentation will be linked in the notes, and I've also linked where you can sign up to be a part of the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition as well. Okay, next question. How are school meals currently funded? School nutrition programs are funded by student participation in the meal program. When more students eat, the more revenue the school nutrition program receives in reimbursement to invest in ingredients, staff, and kitchen infrastructure. The reverse is also true. When fewer students participate, funding declines, but schools must still serve meals, often with fewer staff and a greater reliance on processed foods because they maybe don't have the kitchen infrastructure or the staff time in order to prepare those less processed foods. Continuing on with this question, important to note that funding is in the form of reimbursement, and that reimbursement comes primarily from the federal government with some from the state government. Property taxes, so when you hear people say, well, hey, I pay my property taxes, I don't understand why the school meal program has all this negative school meal debt. It's important to note that property taxes don't go to the school nutrition program, they go to the school district. Again, that school nutrition program receives its funding from student participation. Any questions so far? No? Okay, keep going. Okay, what about this whole free, reduced price, and paid meal thing? School meals are offered to students on a tiered pricing system: free, reduced price, and full price meals. Households qualify for free and reduced meals through an application process at the school district or through participation in other federal assistance programs, and they show up on a list called direct certification. In turn, school nutrition programs are reimbursed at different rates depending on whether the meal is served at the free rate, the reduced price, or the paid rate. And we're going to look at this again here in the upcoming slides. It's important to note that free meals receive the highest reimbursement, paid meals the lowest, as the student's payment is meant to supplement that reimbursement level. A little bit more about this free, reduced, and paid meal thing. This tiered system is not only an administrative burden on schools, but it can also stigmatize students based on financial need and allows for meal debt to accumulate when students cannot afford school meals. A little history. In March of 2020, when the pandemic hit, the United States Department of Agriculture issued waivers that allowed schools nationwide to serve meals at no charge to all students. Those waivers authorizing free school meals expired in June of 2022, and states were instructed to return to the model of free, reduced, and paid meals. Next question. What about the community eligibility provision? Okay, what is it? Community eligibility provision, or CEP, allows high poverty schools or districts to serve breakfast and lunch at no cost to all enrolled students without collecting household applications. Because of the reimbursement funding model used in CEP, schools and districts must evaluate their specific circumstances to determine the financial impact of participation on their school or district. While many schools may qualify for CEP, participation may not always be financially sustainable. And if the school nutrition fund ends the year with a negative balance, we want to note that the district is required to cover the deficit using general funds. We'll circle back on that concept here, but CEP allows high poverty districts and schools to serve breakfast and lunch at no cost, and schools must evaluate the financial impact on their particular district. It's also a program that you must apply for with the Department of Public Instruction. Question that came up after the Wisconsin State Education Convention. Will funding healthy school meals for all take away from my school's current state funding? The school nutrition account, or Fund 50, is a separate fund from the district's general operating funds. It's important to note that education about these distinct accounts is essential. So now we've got Fund 50, which is the school nutrition account, and then we have the other funds that are used to operate the school district. If the school nutrition fund ends the year with a negative balance, the district is required to cover that deficit using general funds. School meal debt does impact Fund 50. So let's break this down a little bit. If the school nutrition fund can't cover all of its costs, and its operating balance ends in the negative at the end of the school year, then the district by law has to move funds over to bring that Fund 50 up to zero, or to zero it out for the year. And what are the different circumstances that make school nutrition funds end in the negative? Can be a lot of school meal debt, can be increased food costs, it can be higher labor costs, it can be costs for fixing equipment. There's all these different pieces that go into Fund 50. Some may feel that school funding is an either or choice. Either we fund school food or we fund textbooks. And if you've been on this call before, you know that the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition, we say that both are important to education, and we don't feel it's an either or choice. I want to pause. Any questions so far? No? And I see, Jason, I see your question and in the chat there talking about summer meal programs. Absolutely, you can connect on that and get you connected with someone to talk about that. Right. All right, we'll keep on going. And Matt, I'll also say if you want to jump in so people don't always have to hear my voice, by all means, you are welcome to jump in at any time, but I'll keep going here. Another question that came out of the Wisconsin State Education Convention. Will funding healthy school meals for all take away from the poorer districts in the state? Now you're going to hear kind of a repeat of these answers from the questions before. The school nutrition account, Fund 50, is separate from the district's general operating fund. Education about these distinct accounts is essential. And the estimated cost of healthy school meals for all here in the state of Wisconsin is based on current participation rates, plus an estimated increase from an increase in meal participation across the state with healthy school meals for all. We'll dive back into this here in a bit. We feel it's also really important to note that simply because a family does not qualify for free or reduced price meals does not mean they're financially well off. If we take a look at the income guidelines, we know that a family of four with an income of greater than $42,000 does not qualify for free meals. If we look at that same family of four, if their income is over $60,000, they do not qualify for reduced price meals. Now, when we think about those figures, 42,000 and 60,000, and we think about mortgage payments, car payments, insurance, all the other pieces that go into just living, they can easily chip away at that $42,000 or $60,000, or the money you're bringing home. And it's really 42,000 and 60,000. If you're making $62,000 and trying to make all those costs, it doesn't mean, you're financially well off.
Do you want me to hop in here?
Yeah, go for it. And I'm seeing Caitlin's comment in the chat too, and it's gross income, so it's before taxes or exemptions. That 42 and 60,000. Matt, if you can hop in, that'd be great.
All right. So another question comes. But schools feed kids even when they don't have funds to pay, right? Okay. Answer: yes. However, it can cause some issues and it gets sticky because the cost still has to be accounted for and it accumulates under something called negative meal debt. So, what happens at the end of the school year if that meal debt isn't recovered? If parents aren't able to pay, which happens, that meal debt either gets absorbed by the school nutrition fund in Fund 50, or the school district has to cover it with the general operating funds too. And I think school meal debt is a really good indicator of the urgency of this issue. If you go next, talk about the School Nutrition Association's school meal debt survey. So when you look at what school meal debt looks like across Wisconsin, um, I don't know if y'all can read that. 480,000 in 2019, 521,000 in 2021. 2 years later, nearly $700,000 of school meal debt that districts are carrying. It's a 43% increase from before the pandemic. One of five kids is carrying some sort of school meal debt. And the projection shows that the equivalent of approximately $3 million of debt across the state because of the survey of what they're able to gather. And Caitlin or someone else from, that's been part of SNA, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's a it's a it's a snapshot of what they're able to gather, but then when you project it across the state, you're looking at up to 3 million. And when you break it down by free, reduced, or paid district status, you can see that um, 2/3 of that school meal debt is coming from school districts with less than 40% free reduced, and a third is coming with uh, greater than 40% free reduced. So it is just so clear that the issue really comes from those districts where you have a certain number of kids that they just they're in that spot where they don't qualify for free school meals but the families are still struggling. And that population of families grows every single year. Um, next.
Yeah, and I'll add off this too, Matt, because sometimes people might look and go, oh, well, the district has less than 40% free or reduced. They're a well-off district. And this is showing not necessarily the case. There's still a lot of school meal debt accumulating in those districts. Matt, if you want to keep going,
Yeah.
I'll happy to have you
Of course.
go.
So, what happens with that school meal debt? This huge problem if the state of Wisconsin switches to healthy school meals policy, it is eliminated because the state ends up covering that difference between the federal reimbursement and what the school receives and what it charges. Next. Um,
I'm happy to jump in on this one here, Matt,
yeah,
real quick.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So kind of, at the beginning of this presentation, we mentioned there's this tiered system of free, reduced, and paid. And we created this visual to help folks understand how that works in practice, and then to help show you all how funding is going to work here in the state of Wisconsin. So going back to that model of free, reduced, and paid meals, if you follow me across the screen, I'm giving some general dollar figures here. But for, let's say, talking about the free category. So the household submits their income via application to the school district. The school district determines that the students in that district qualify for free meals. What that means is the students in that household are not going to pay anything for their meals. The district is going to claim them for reimbursement at the free rate, and they receive $4.50. And this is a rough a rough number, but $4.50 from primarily the federal government, some state dollars, to cover the cost of that meal, $4.50. Okay, now let's go to that reduced price category. Household submits their application, school district looks at it, determines that the application qualifies for reduced price meals. It means the students in that household are going to pay 40 cents for their school lunch. That's the area in yellow. And then that school district is going to claim that meal at the reduced rate, and they're going to receive about $4.10 in reimbursement to help to cover the cost of that meal. Okay. And then for a paid meal, schools are also going to receive reimbursement funding for any meals they serve at the paid rate. But the way that they're covering the cost of that meal is through a combination of the reimbursement. So in this case, it's roughly about 50 cents. And then it's whatever the district is charging for that paid meal. Ideally, it's going to cover, it's going to be equal to the free and reduced, what the district is working with to cover the cost of the free and the reduced price meals, but it can vary district to district. Now, how is Healthy School Meals for All going to work here in the state of Wisconsin? State of Wisconsin is still going to utilize federal dollars to support school meals, but the state would be kicking in the areas in yellow to make sure that all meals are reimbursed at the free rate. We're going to look at this in another way here. So we have a couple figures from two different, we have a figure of what Healthy School Meals for All is going to cost here in the state. And this comes from Governor Evers' last proposed budget. He included no-cost school meals in his most recent proposed budget, and it was estimated to cost about $148 million annually for Healthy School Meals for All. Now, the coalition said, that's a pretty big number. And we went back to the Legislative Reference Bureau and we said, can you give us a rough estimate of what that might cost per the average taxpayer? And they said, it's not a perfect calculation, but the calculation that they can provide estimates the average cost at about $60 per the average taxpayer. And want to make the comparison here. So that's $60 for all students in Wisconsin that if they choose to participate in school breakfast, school lunch, that they're going to receive a school breakfast, school lunch at no cost. $60 means all students have access. In comparison, if I were to send a child to middle school today, and let's say that that child eats only lunch for 1 month, about 20 days, That's roughly equivalent to the cost of about $60, depending on where they are in, what particular district. So we can either come together as a state and collectively support healthy school meals for all, or we can continue with the model that we're at. So this is if you do have children in school, this can be a real cost savings for school meals, because we're looking at coming together $60 per the average taxpayer versus what you might be spending if you have multiple kids across multiple schools and you're paying for school lunch. And next question, will the free and reduced meal applications go away? Yes and no. Okay. As Healthy School Meals for All, we use a combination of federal and state funding. Economic data is still required for federal funding. So the terminology of the free and reduced price meal application will likely go away and be replaced with something like application for educational benefits. As economic data in schools is used for more than school meals, this new name will more accurately reflect the need for this personal data. Important to note that other states have passed Healthy School Meals for All and are using the language application for educational benefits. And they're including it with their general school registration paperwork, and sharing the importance of collecting this data from everyone to support school funding across the board. Economic data can also still be collected through direct certification, but with the recent and upcoming changes to SNAP and food share, fewer students may qualify for direct certification. So again, this reiterates the importance of widely sharing this application for educational benefits, emphasizing that the information will remain confidential within the district and that all families are encouraged to complete the form to support overall school funding. And I know we're getting close on time, but we'll see how many more questions we can get through. How are other states collecting economic data without free and reduced meal application? Kind of already chatted about this. They're using the application for educational benefits. They're including it with general registration paperwork. They're also utilizing direct certification. And again, they're really emphasizing the importance of everyone filling out the application to support school funding. How many states have passed Healthy School Meals for All? Well, we heard from New Mexico today. In total, 9 have passed Healthy School Meals for All. 3 have passed free school breakfast policies. I've heard that other states underestimated how many students will participate and are drastically over budget. Is this true? There are states, including our neighbor of Minnesota, who went over what they had budgeted for Healthy School Meals for All. Again, want to mention that the estimated cost of Healthy School Meals for All here in Wisconsin is based on the current participation rates, plus an estimated increase from an increase in participation with Healthy School Meals for All. So it's important to work in partnership with our state agency to make sure that that estimated cost includes a high enough increase in participation so that we've got an accurate figure that we're going off of. Matt, do you care to talk a little bit about SNAP?
Yeah, so obviously it's been in the news a ton over the course of the past, like 4, 6 months, year, the changes to the SNAP or food share program, and how does that impact school meals? Um, Essentially, indirectly is how it could impact it. So in the way that they restructured the SNAP program, there are more people that enrollment is going down. So we've already seen since a peak in March or May, like from this spring, we've seen a drop of about 37,000 participants in the SNAP program in the state of Wisconsin. And that drop is not due to improving economic conditions for families. It is, and as of right now, due to the changes, no one has been kicked off the program yet due to changes. This is just simply from the chilling effect of people seeing what's been coming down the pipeline and a fear around the program. And we expect the number of people that are enrolling in the program to continue to go down as some of these program changes take effect. So when that happens, that impacts direct certification and the group of kids that as school districts just kind of like search these databases and work with departmental services to do some data matching and find out which kids just would automatically qualify, it really drops the number of kids that will qualify automatically for free school meals every single year. Next. I can take food-based food analysis and just jump in whenever. School nutrition programs. What about food waste? So, oh yeah, we can go ahead. So, quick history of no-cost school
Oh,
meals and oh, you want to
sorry,
go
Matt.
for it?
I didn't mean to
No,
do that. I was
it's
trying to
okay.
click over. Yeah, I'll add in here too. I know we're at 2:30. We'll go ahead and we'll finish out these slides. Those of you who need to hop off, go ahead. Matt, if you want to keep with food waste,
Yeah.
go for it.
And the big picture is too, so even if you got to hop off, the team really, Allison especially, like has put together some amazing answers for a lot of these questions that we know get asked all the time, and this will can get shared out with the coalition. But what about food waste? There's a ton of work that's been done and models like in Mexico about how school nutrition programs can help reduce food waste. And there's a lot of really neat best practices out there. Next. So hasn't this been tried before? What's the history of this? I'm going to skip to the next one and I'm just going to do a couple quick statement. Here's the thing. Yes, there's been a ton of policies in the state budget and standalone bills introduced. There has not been a political environment that has had the appetite to be able to move this along. But every single time in this work, through the work of this coalition and everyone here on the call, there are more groups and more elected officials that are open to having these type of discussions about finding some sort of pathway forward to increase the number of kids that can qualify for free school meals with a statewide policy. Like, there's a ton of momentum on our side here. Next. And we already got a free reduced price meal program. Like, isn't that enough? Like, what's wrong with the current system? I think hopefully all the other talking points help inform an answer to this as well. There's too many families that actually don't qualify for free reduced price meals, but are food insecure and can't have the money. $42,000 isn't going to get you free meals right now if that's your annual income. And the school meal debt, that's really all you need to know there. Next. And why are we feeding families like that they can afford to pay? I know they're not in trouble and they're wealthy, they're well off, they got a fancy car, and how come we're feeding those kids? We do the same thing for books. We do the same thing for buses. Stigma is a real thing, and kids can remember the way that they feel if they are singled out because they're receiving free meals and other kids aren't. A Massachusetts representative noted that it's now just the norm in their state for kids just to get free school meals, and no one thinks about it. It's just part of the school day. And Allison, I can leave it back to you to talk about how to engage with healthy school meals for all.
Yeah, so you'll note on our Healthy School Meals for All website, if you go to the bottom footer, we've got 4 ways that you can personally engage. Follow us on Instagram, join our Healthy School Meals for All listserv, attend a virtual coalition meeting, or go ahead and join the Healthy School Meals for All coalition, which we noted at the top of this call is a way to for us to know how many folks are supporting this movement throughout the state. How can you publicly support Healthy School Meals for All? If you've been on our calls before, you know that we've got a Take Action toolkit that has the templates for you to share your story with the press and your representatives, and some graphics to share on social media. And we also have that op-ed training where you can review that on YouTube. And then we've got some resources there for you all to take a look at. And I promise we're almost here to the end. How can school boards and members support Healthy School Meals for All? You can propose a resolution in support of Healthy School Meals for All. We've got a template resolution in our Take Action toolkit, and we've also had some school districts that have already passed these resolutions through their school boards. And you can also share your support publicly. Maggie Smith, who's a Holman School District board member, did an audio interview, and that is posted to our Healthy School Meals for All website, so be sure to check that out. And I accidentally clicked on the link there, but okay, I think we should be back to the presentation. And again, just wanting to bring it home, how does Healthy School Meals for All help the greater community? Greater and consistent funding in the school nutrition program means that farmers are going to benefit from sales to schools, better pay, benefits, and morale for school nutrition professionals. Parents don't have to worry if they forget to pack a lunch, and school meals are a source of pride for the community. And with that, that wraps up a lot of our top questions that we received at the Wisconsin State Education Convention. And thank you all for sticking with us here today. I know we went about 5 minutes over, but we appreciate Liz and Representative Hong hopping on, and for all the questions that you all have posed to us that we could share. We'll make sure to get these on the website so that folks have easy access to them. But I hope you all enjoy the day. If you do have any questions, I'll go ahead and I'll stay on here for a few minutes. But I'm just going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop the recording here as well.